See if this rings a bell. Your friend just added their third tattoo. A coworker is proudly showing off a full sleeve. Your Instagram feed looks like a non-stop exhibit of fresh ink. And there you are, with untouched skin, somehow cast as the odd one out. But here's the surprising part. Deciding not to get tattoos is far more psychologically layered than it seems. And the statistics help explain why it feels this way. More than 45% of millennials have at least one tattoo. That's nearly half an entire generation marked with ink. But here's what's rarely discussed. Everyone loves breaking down why people get tattoos, yet almost no one examines those who choose not to. And believe me, their motivations reveal something deeply interesting about human nature. Let's begin with the most obvious reason: permanence. But hold on, before you think that's too obvious, stay with me for a moment. We live in a world where people sign 40-year mortgages without hesitation. Marriage? No problem. Children? Of course. Those are lifelong commitments. But a small tattoo on the ankle? Suddenly that feels like too much. This is where the psychology gets fascinating. It's linked to something called future self-continuity. This idea describes how strongly someone feels connected to their future self. Some people genuinely struggle to picture themselves as the same person decades from now. For them, getting a tattoo feels like making a choice on behalf of someone they don't yet know, someone who happens to live in their body. And honestly, that concern isn't unfounded. Research shows that personalities can change dramatically over time. That edgy skull you adored at 19, your 45-year-old self might not be so enthusiastic. People without tattoos often score higher on what psychologists call awareness of temporal discounting. In simple terms, they're very good at anticipating future regret before it arrives. That's not hesitation, that's long-term thinking. But things get even more interesting. Some tattoo-free individuals have what researchers describe as a fluid identity orientation. It sounds complex, but the idea is simple. These people view themselves as constantly changing, always unfinished. They resist locking in any version of who they are because they're still discovering it. And they may always be discovering it. Think about what a tattoo represents. It declares that something matters enough to last forever. But what if you're someone who finds meaning in not making permanent declarations? What if your core value is staying flexible, open, unbound by earlier definitions of who you were or what you cared about? There's a psychological concept tied to this, known as identity foreclosure, which happens when someone commits to an identity before fully exploring themselves. People who avoid tattoos may worry that permanent choices today could limit who they're able to become tomorrow. But here's the twist. This isn't always a healthy pattern. Some psychologists argue it can, at times, point to a deeper discomfort with commitment or with truly knowing oneself. Not in every case, but in some. The boundary between remaining open to growth and avoiding a clear sense of self can become surprisingly unclear. And before anyone without tattoos feels attacked, there's another factor most people hesitate to admit. Social norms and career considerations matter more than we like to say. Even as tattoos become more accepted, many people are still doing a quiet mental calculation. They're weighing pros and cons. How will this look at work? Will my family be okay with it? What kind of assumptions will people make about me? And here's the key part. People who don't have tattoos are often more attuned to social rules and possible judgment. They place value on shaping how they're seen, and permanent ink can feel like surrendering part of that control. Studies show that those who avoid tattoos frequently engage in what psychologists refer to as impression management. They think carefully about how they appear to others. A tattoo becomes a fixed element they can't adjust or take back. But let's pause and be honest. Is that insight or is it anxiety? That's the real question. Some are acting with intention and foresight. Others may be holding back their self-expression because outside opinions feel too heavy. This psychology isn't right or wrong. It simply reveals different ways people move through social environments. But there's another reason people stay tattoo-free that almost never gets discussed, and it's actually quite elegant. For some, having no tattoos is a deliberate decision, not an absence of choice. There's a mindset built around preserving the body as it is, not out of fear or criticism, but out of sincere respect. It's a kind of minimalism applied to skin. These people see an unmarked body as a form of clarity, a refusal to rely on outward symbols to communicate inner meaning. From a psychological standpoint, this often connects to what's called an intrinsic identity orientation, the belief that identity exists without external signs or labels. They don't need ink to remember what matters or who they are. They hold those things within themselves. And there's something quietly powerful in that, isn't there? In a culture that constantly urges you to stand out, speak up, and make your mark, choosing not to join in becomes its own kind of resistance. But this part matters. That philosophy only holds when it's a conscious choice, not a cover for fear or uncertainty. The psychology shifts completely depending on whether someone is choosing bare skin or simply avoiding marked skin. And here's a thought that might surprise you. Some of the most impactful people you'll ever encounter don't have a single tattoo. That's the contradiction. We've built this idea that tattoos signal depth, that ink equals meaning. But meaning doesn't require a physical form. Some people form deep bonds with ideas, people, and moments without ever needing to carve them into their skin. They're not less emotionally connected, just connected in a different way. There's research showing that memory doesn't work the same for everyone. Some people absorb meaningful moments by fully experiencing them, rather than by leaving behind permanent symbols. Their memories don't weaken because there's no physical reminder. In some cases, that internal processing actually makes the experience feel stronger and more alive. Think of it this way. You don't forget your mother's face just because you don't have it inked on your skin. Lacking an external marker doesn't mean lacking inner significance. For certain people, this is how they relate to everything that truly matters. So here's the reality. The psychology of those who never get tattoos is just as layered, legitimate, and intriguing as that of those who do. It's not about being dull or afraid. It's about long-term thinking, flexible identity, social sensitivity, and sometimes a personal belief about what it means to exist comfortably in your own body. And maybe that's why this subject is so compelling. We pour so much effort into understanding why people act the way they do, why they get tattoos, why they choose certain paths. But sometimes what someone chooses not to do can say just as much about the human mind as the action itself. Whether your skin is covered in ink or completely untouched, the real question isn't the choice you make. It's whether that choice is intentional, genuine, and truly yours. Because in the end, both directions are simply different answers to the same question. Who am I, and how do I want to show up in the world? If this video shifted how you think about tattoos, or about not having them, tap the subscribe button. And if you'd like to support the channel and explore more psychology topics like this, consider joining as a member. It truly helps us continue creating content that challenges the way you see the world.